This is Mac OS Ken.
How tariffs could hurt Apple, part 80, I think. Sparring between the EU, big tech, and the US. And catching up on TV talk. It is Tuesday, the 22nd of April, 2025. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken. Brought to you by yours truly and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSCat. Wouldn't it be nice to think that Apple was out of the woods where the China tariffs are concerned? We talked yesterday about Wall Street's huge sigh of relief around Apple last week. That came after the Trump administration carved out what looked for all the world like exemptions for big tech around the 145% tariffs on goods imported into the U.S. from China. So why did TF International analyst Ming-Chi Kuo hit the tariff thing again on Monday? According to a piece from CNBC, the Trump administration is reportedly planning to use tariff negotiations to pressure U.S. partners to limit their dealings with China. I guess the good news is we apparently still have partners, but if they go along with the apparent Trump plan, Ming-Chi Kuo thinks it will mean gloom, despair, and agony on Apple. A piece from Seeking Alpha had Young MC hitting the hell site on Monday. Citing the CNBC piece, the analyst said in part, if such restrictions on trade with China involve urging other countries to raise their tariffs on Chinese goods, the potential risks for Apple would rise sharply. If tariffs on Chinese imports stay limited to the U.S., the TF International analyst says Apple risks are manageable. However, he says, if other countries also raise tariffs on Chinese goods, Apple would need to establish more non-China iPhone production lines to meet demand in markets beyond the U.S., meaning the tariff risks for Apple would become immeasurable and entirely uncontrollable. Needless to say, China is not pleased by this prospect. The CNBC piece had the Chinese Ministry of Commerce saying the country firmly opposes any party reaching a deal at the expense of China's interests. If this happens, they say, China will not accept it and will resolutely take reciprocal countermeasures. Quoting the report, the ministry cautioned about the risk to all countries once international trade returns to the law of the jungle. The statement also sought to cast China as willing to work with all parties and defend international fairness and justice, while describing the U.S. actions as abusing tariffs and unilateral bullying. Well, maybe we won't have to talk about tariffs tomorrow. To Europe now, for what sounds like something similar, if not quite more of the same. Over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal ran a piece that said the European Union was holding off on penalizing Apple and Meta while it tried to work out trade deals with the Trump administration. According to the report, the European Commission, the EU's executive body, had initially planned to announce cease and desist orders targeting the tech giants on Tuesday and had informed at least one of the companies of that timing, people familiar with the matter said. Both companies could also have been slapped with fines. It is not that the fines aren't coming, according to the report. They're just being delayed, unless you ask the European Union, in which case they're not. What? Apple Insider ran a piece Monday that had the EU denying that it's been holding off on fining firms, including Apple and Meta, because of concerns of reprisals from Trump. The piece had European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen insisting that the rules voted by co-legislators must be enforced. That's why they've opened cases against TikTok, Twitter, Apple, Meta, just to name a few. They apply the rules fairly, proportionally, and without bias. They don't care where a company is from and who's running it. They care about protecting people. That sounds tough without sounding definitive. Rumor has the regulatory body considering less substantial punishments than it could impose and taking its time doing so, while dealing with the tempest that is Trump. The EC responds by saying it'll get to it, but doesn't say when nor with what severity. But nothing to see here. Move along. The software beta parade rolls on. A few pieces from Mac Rumors had Apple seeding third betas of iOS and iPadOS 18.5 to developers on Monday. They were accompanied by third developer betas of macOS Sequoia 15.5, watchOS 11.5, tvOS 18.5, and visionOS 2.5. Mac Rumors expects the next round of operating systems to hit sometime next month. With that in mind, Apple will probably start releasing betas for public testers pretty soon. A couple of Apple devices went vintage last week. Mac Rumors ran a piece a week ago today saying that iPhone 6s and the 2018 Mac Mini had landed on the Cupertino Company's vintage hardware list. That Mac Mini is particularly notable. It was the last one with Intel inside, according to the report. If you're sporting either device, you'll want to go easy on it, though kid gloves are not required yet. Apple and its authorized service providers will service hardware on the vintage list, provided the parts are available to do so. Lots of TV news happened while I was away, including an Apple-related premiere on Netflix, a couple of premieres on Apple TV+, and an untimely end for an early Apple comedy. We will start on Netflix, where a real-life drama is getting a dramatic treatment. Remember the Amsterdam Apple Store hostage situation in 2022? Apple Insider reminds us about that. Man walked into an Apple store in February of that year and took a hostage at gunpoint, resulting in a tense standoff between the man and police. In the ensuing hours, the perpetrator fired shots at police, and there were reports that he was also carrying explosives, which were later found to be not armed. Police said approximately 70 people were rescued from the Apple store, including 4 who hid in a closet. The initial hostage made an escape, while the hostage taker died in the incident. And Netflix has made a movie about it. According to Apple Insider, the film, called iHostage, takes on a number of perspectives, including from the perpetrator, the hostages, and emergency services. Few critics seem to have seen it, though the audience on Rotten Tomatoes gives it a merciless 20% rating. There's a trailer up on YouTube. iHostage is streaming now on Netflix. Apple TV Plus is now serving government cheese. A description shared by 9 to 5 Mac says the show is a surrealist comedy set in 1969 that tells the story of the Chambers, a quirky family pursuing lofty and seemingly impossible dreams, beautifully unfettered by the realities of the world. When Hampton Chambers is released from prison, his long-awaited family reunion doesn't quite go as he'd planned. David Oyelowo leads the cast, scoring a relatively fresh 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Government Cheese is streaming now on Apple TV+. From a show about family to one for the family, the 3rd season of Jane is up on Apple's streamer. This is the one about the 9-year-old budding environmentalist on a quest to save endangered animals, inspired by the words and work of Dr. Jane Goodall. Goodall herself makes an appearance in Season 3, all 5 episodes of which are streaming now. And finally today, a story I would really rather never have to do. Apple has canceled Mythic Quest. Though being Mythic Quest, it's ended in a very weird way. A little over a week ago, TechCrunch ran a piece saying that Apple had pulled the plug on the series. Theoretically, that made the last episode of Season 4, which hit the stream on the 26th of March, the last episode ever, complete with cliffhangers and a seriously jaw-dropping moment. If you haven't seen it, looks like you never will. Not the way it originally hit anyway. The TechCrunch piece I mentioned had executive producers Megan Gans, David Hornsby, and Rob McElhenney saying in a statement to Variety that with Apple's blessing, they had made one final update to the last episode so they could say goodbye instead of just game over. That statement hit TechCrunch on the 12th of April. On the 18th of April, the updated episode hit, apparently wiping out what had come before. According to a piece over the weekend from 9 to 5 Mac, now that the finale has been updated, Apple TV Plus no longer offers a way to watch the original episode. I gotta say, I'm bummed that we're not going to get more MQ. I haven't watched the revamped last episode yet, though I'm sure they didn't ruin it. If you haven't seen it, the whole series is definitely worth a watch. Now, if you want 3 great episodes of standalone television, Season 1's A Dark, Quiet Death and the middle 2 episodes of the spin-off Side Quest are really wonderful. Tangentially tied to the Mythic Quest mythos, they really are just great stories on their own. Really though, watch Mythic Quest. Total bummer, the quest is at an end. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Leonard likes this post.